And our candidate and incumbent is Judge Cheryl Moss. And Judge, I will share a few things with you. And
Can I ask the audience that if you're going to have a conversation, to please take it out of the room? We are having interviews and recording them. Thank you.
And just so you know, the buffets are for the panelists only. And me.
Cameraman.
And the cameraman, yes. The cameraman. I will share with you, Judge, the rules as they've been laid out to me. Candidates are allowed 1.5 minutes to introduce themselves. Panel members are allowed 40 seconds to pose a question. Candidates are allowed 1 minute to answer. We'll just go from there because the rest of them really don't apply to you. And I will give great liberty to our panelists in regards to questions to you, and probably give you great liberty in responding to those so they have a complete understanding. That being said, we will start with Ms. Mijares. I'm going to get this straight. First, please.
All right, in regards to a possible conflict of interest, I have no questions for this candidate.
Okay. Ms. B.
Well, I'd like to repeat
Let her introduce herself.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us about yourself.
That's the third time I've done it. You think you get my checker in. Would you please introduce
Sure, no
yourself?
problem.
And you have to the according rules of eminent now.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Judge Cheryl Moss. I'm a family court judge in Department I. It was an open seat when I ran in 2000. And I ran in 2000, 2002, 2008, and I'm currently running for another 6-year term this year. Just a little bit about myself. I was born in Milwaukee, raised in New Jersey. My parents were both VA doctors. My mom was chief of psychiatry here at the VA Medical Center since 1994. My dad transferred, as did my mom, from New Jersey and continued on working for the VA as a radiologist. They both served over 30 years before they retired, and then they passed away right around election time in 2008. So my mom also was a retired lieutenant colonel in the Army Reserves as a physician in medical corps, and I guess government service is in my blood. So I have doctors that worked in the parents who worked as doctors in the VA, and I know a lot about the Veterans Administration, particularly in the hospital field. My mom didn't live in time to see the new VA hospital constructed, but I think her memory lives on at the VA. I still talk to some of the VA personnel over there. And as far as my interest with the veterans and having had a close ties with my mom and her work with the VA, my mom was a expert in gambling addiction. She's also helped the veterans with alcohol addiction issues, post-traumatic stress disorder. That's one of my current desires, to expand my field of knowledge, because I do get veterans in my courtroom with PTSD and they're involved in custody cases. So I've attended a few seminars on combat trauma and PTSD that was taught at UNLV by Professor Ashley. He was used in my cases, referred because he was the only one that could evaluate veterans, whether or not they were a risk to themselves or a danger to themselves in terms of being able to care for their children. So I'm working on trying to get a networking system where we can have veterans referred to the appropriate resources so that they can get either help or support with moving on with their custody cases.
Okay, thank you very much. We will go on to our first question, or at least try to again. Ms. B, your question.
Okay, regarding custody issues, if all things being equal between two parents and both wanting full custody for reasoning of religious reasons. For instance, one could be a Christian, one could be an atheist, one could be a Scientologist, one could be Jewish, whichever the case. How do you, in your mind, how do you come to the right conclusion in a case like that?
In terms of religious cases, particularly, well, first of all, the basic principle is our Constitution says that we can't discriminate on the basis of race, religion, and as far as parents, they have a constitutional right to raise their children, and also in religious aspects. I've had cases come through my courtroom where one parent had converted to another religion, and the two religions were so at odds with each other. There's cases case law, I don't know if specifically in Nevada, but I think there's case law that says that if the conflict of the religions and the way that they're raising the child is going to pose some type of substantial harm, or for example, the child is exhibiting physical symptoms and all that, then the court could step in to protect the best interests of the child. So if, again, if you have different religions, you have to look at the best interest of the child and any substantial harm, risk, or injury to the child because of the conflicts between the two parents' religious values. So that's how I would follow the law and address that in particular cases.
Thank you. Dr. Hawkins?
Is this seat actually unopposed, or does none of the other candidates bother to show?
Judge, you'd have to ask that question.
It is opposed. I have one opponent.
And what do you attribute the relative lack of opposition here to?
Well, I can't go into the head of my opponent. Whatever reasons.
Or other opponents that didn't file? We
Yeah.
see lots of judges with lots of opponents.
My opponent came into my race in the last 5 minutes of the last day for whatever reasons. The only thing I know about him, and I think a majority of the family law attorneys don't really know too much about my opponent. I know him because he's come into my courtroom just a handful of times. I guess he's mainly more known as a criminal defense attorney. I question his actual domestic relations experience, family law experience, and he's done a couple of motions, never done a trial in my courtroom. But I can't speak for whatever reasons he entered into the race. And I've been out on the campaign trail, and I haven't seen him.
Doctor, do you have another question?
No, was it Joseph Scalia?
No, it is Travis Shetler.
Oh,
That being said, Mr. Jonas, your turn.
Okay, Judge Moss, thanks for appearing today. Really appreciate that. Main question I have for you is, so you were one of the judges that was actually voted in the RJ opinion poll by attorneys that you shouldn't be retained. How much weight do you think that the voters should actually pay attention to that survey? And do you think that that survey is outdated and it's relevant anymore?
I'm well of the surveys. I actually went up from the last time. But I don't think statistically with the numbers, there are a lot of good attorneys out there that don't bother to fill out the survey. Goodness, I hope it's okay. As far as, if there was really that kind of sentiment about not having been retained on the survey, I would think I would have drawn a lot more opponents. So I think the numbers don't speak for themselves as far as the survey. I think there are attorneys there that think I'm doing an okay job, and they're just not filling them out. And I believe, I don't know what the sample numbers were.
Okay, just a quick follow-up question on that. So you've been a sitting judge for quite a while now. What motivates you to continue to pursue your career on the bench? And is there other offices do you want to pursue and go above where you're at right now in the future?
Well, frankly, I believe I was offered some lead to get into a federal judgeship because of my Asian American heritage. I declined that because I said I'm happy where I'm at, I enjoy the work that I do, and I wanted to continue on doing family court work. So there was an opportunity where I could have pursued a position in the federal district court, but I declined that because I did a lot of things when I first, took off running on my bench in the first year. I'm the first judge to institute problem gambling assessments in custody cases. I'm the first judge, I was a judge that got free Wi-Fi in the courthouse. We were years behind the RJC. So I think that makes the public and the attorneys happy to be able to do their work while they're waiting. Let's see, what else? I volunteer in the high school mock trial competitions. I'm about ready for the third round when I get back from the family law conference. So I enjoy doing things for the high school kids. And I try to make a conscientious effort to get out there in the community as well. And I have over 650 hours of continuing legal education. A lot of it is based on domestic relations law. They've asked me to be national speakers. I'm actually only one of 2 judges who has an expertise in gambling addictions, and they asked me to speak at national conferences. I spoke in Seattle, Las Vegas, and this year I'll be going to Orlando.
Thank
So
you
I'm
very much.
passionate about my work.
Dr. Dupree?
How much weight do you give to children's voices?
In terms of custody cases, it depends on their age, maturity level, their education and educational level. Some children are too young to express themselves, some are ahead of their time in their ages. But when in doubt, if they want to hear their voice, we offer them to be interviewed by the Family Mediation Center. Some judges like to personally interview the children, but I think we have wonderful professionals at our FMC and are able to get those reports in. We have to understand their developmental level as far as their being able to make an intelligent preference as to their desires for custody and timeshare. There are age ranges, for example, I mean, 6 and below, 4, 5, 6, maybe they're too young to express their interests. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, they're usually going to see, you can anticipate in a child interview report that they love both their mom and dad and they want equal time with their parents. When they get to be about 11, 12, or their tween ages, 11, 12, 13, you have to be mindful that some of them might be learning to, and I'm not saying that some kids do this all the time, but they might manipulate the parents. So if their rules are better or where they can get away with the rules in one parent's household, then you have to be mindful of that. 14 is such a gray area, whether or not they should have teenager discretion. 15, 16, the older they get, then the more independent thinking these teenagers are. So you have to, it's a term called teenager discretion, so that's, you have to give them certain rules. And in Judge Moss's courtroom, my courtroom, I say, well, you have to be a good kid, listen to both your parents, get good grades at school, and not get in trouble. So that is sort of my main criteria, whether I would allow a child teenager discretion.
Thank you very much. Judge Luke?
Judge Moss, I just want to give you the heads up that I'm not going to be voting on the endorsement or participating in the discussions of the group for that. I was asked to come in and help with some questions today. My question to you, as it has been to the other candidates, there are limitations on it. We have no more space for judges and no appetite to create new judgeships, but the cases keep coming and they're never ending. And so what would you propose to do to add programs or restructure family court to address those increased cases, pro se litigants, and the cost of legal services for the public?
Very poignant question. It's been years since I haven't been able to get my courtroom back on Fridays because of courtroom sharing. So on Fridays, I'm not in court and I have my in-chambers day. And you're right about the space program. We've got 3 of the other judges in the RJC, so we can't get all in one building right now. My proposal is alternative dispute resolution to move things quickly through the courts, and it is mandatory that parents undergo mediation unless there are exceptions such as domestic violence and just absolute futility that they won't be able to go. But we have our Family Mediation Center. Our programs have grown in family court. We have our hearing settlement masters program, and commend the Nevada State Bar, the family law attorneys for participating as pro bono volunteer attorneys to settle cases, no matter how complex they are. We have our UNLV Boyd Law School mediation program, and that has been in place for several years now. And we have private mediation as well.
Thank you. Mr. Lane?
Judge Moss, I'm going to ask you a tough question. I would like to know what you believe is your gravest mistake on the bench and how you fixed it.
Oh, my gravest, oh my gosh, okay, well, my gravest mistake on the bench. My gravest mistake on the bench that is, I think, persistent, I guess it's been reflected in the survey, is the lack of timeliness on my calendar. Because I'm, I'm a very compassionate judge. I like to have people heard, but also in the meantime, I have to have control in the courtroom. As far as if you're thinking of any of those, any kind of high-profile case that has been in the news, and we do what we can as judges. We cannot predict how a parent would, parent their child outside of our courtroom. We have to do our best. There are sometimes conflicting considerations, and we have to make the best decision possible. And sometimes, yes, there is a loss of life, and that is part of the job. That is part of the job, is to handle these types of cases. But we have to have that type of confidence in making decisions, so that parents can get through whatever they need to get through.
Very good. Mr. Melendrez.
Thank you, Judge. I have a question. You mentioned the gambling addiction and how that interplays with your courtroom. What type of issues do you see interplaying in your courtroom with veterans that are coming back from active duty?
Just veterans in general?
Just veterans in
Okay,
general.
veterans in general, when they first appear in my courtroom, sometimes they have phased out on their VD 214, or they are already, some of them are still in active duty. The custody cases, I'm pleased to hear that a new NRS was enacted. It was 125C.2061, or one of those statutes that says that when a veteran is on active deployment, that they have rights as far as and beyond the Soldiers and Sailors Civil Relief Act, formerly known as the Service Members Civil Relief Act, formerly known as the Soldiers and Sailors Act. Beyond those federal constitutional protections, our Nevada revised statutes, it went into effect in January this year, that they have rights that you cannot make a permanent custody decision while they're on active deployment. Their side of the family may petition for visitation rights, or the court may grant that their side of the family access to the child. Also, when they get back, we have the post-traumatic stress disorder issues, which is why I'm continuing to get more education on that and trying to provide some type of referral network, or if we can't get anything specifically, I would like to talk to our treating providers, the psychological providers, the ones that are credentialed and are actually on our outsourced provider list, to get them more training or make it mandatory training for them. But PTSD is one of the biggest issues. I am actually the first and only judge to attend and graduate a week-long CIT program. I don't know if some of you have heard of the Metro CIT officers. I'm the only judge that went through that program in 2007. And it's a week-long training on crisis intervention, and that is very relevant to veterans' issues as well, in hostage negotiation or hostage crises or homeless crises, homelessness.
Thank you,
Yes.
Judge.
Thank you for keeping time. Judges can go on.
I'm actually way off time.
Yeah. Okay.
But in the best interest of others coming in for their interviews as well.
Sure.
And Mr. Blanchard will ask you your last and final question, and you have 1 minute to respond.
Okay.
And I'll keep it to you.
Yes. It's just-
Judge, I want to thank you for coming in
Thank you.
and running and showing up here. It's so hard to ask this question when you don't have an opponent here to talk about their side, but what quality do you best have that you know of and have been able to use during your time on the bench that best serves the public to retain you in your seat?
I'd like to say, like mother, like daughter. I am so proud of my mom serving in the military, and I've watched her grow up my entire childhood, my entire adulthood, to see, all the accomplishments and to follow in her footsteps. And that would be my greatest qualities to what I have learned and the qualities that I've learned from my mom, and how best serving it in the government, just like she did. She cared about her veterans. I remember attending her funeral, and her patient showed up, and I just felt so bad. I wanted to cry. I didn't know where to refer him to, and I tried to assure him. So she was sorely missed by her patients. But my mom, I guess, is my best quality.
Thank you very much, panelists and audience. Judge Cheryl Moss, give her a round of applause. Judge, I know that veterans of politics would like to get some photos of you respect.